Blight by Orpheus Kidwell, Chapter 4, Part 2, Mount Apero. 3 days south of the Red Coast by foot, Yagura found himself at a new location, one of the mountains, the smallest of nine, that made the white curtain of veil, was known as Mount Alpero. Yagura tracked the paths up the mountain. He had caught wind of a familiar signature. He knew each and every one of his siblings' nether signatures by heart. It was faint, but he had found Naruto's. More accurately, it was Kurama that he had sensed. It was very faint, and if he hadn't specifically been looking for it, he doubted he would have felt it. If Naruto had been any less powerful than he was, it would have disappeared already. It was a fortress he had traveled through at just that time. Based on the direction the trail was going, he imagined that Naruto and whoever was with him had gone through these mountains. While he didn't particularly care, Yagura knew that Naruto wouldn't want him to reveal the White's locations. For that reason, and that reason alone, he had suppressed his nether down and hid his tails. That had brought up a new issue, however. Now people that he passed on his journey mistook him for a filthy faunus. Like right now, with these half-castes, they claimed to be humans, but Yagura could plainly see the animal, the scent of them. Hey, I'm talking to you, bastard. Yagura lost his train of thought as one of the roaming thugs yelled in his general direction, turning his eyes to meet those of a lowly tribal. He couldn't help but sneer. His aura reeked of greed and petty anger as it stood. Yagura was surrounded by a band of nomadic bandits, but couldn't care less. They might as well not have been existed. Are you going to hand over that weapon and your necklace, or are we going to have to take them? Yagura narrowed his eyes. So these things thought they could possibly take what belonged to a white? If you think you can touch the abyss, then look into it. Yagura spoke cryptically. While he wanted to release his nether, Naruto wouldn't like it. He would hold back, but only because he didn't want the huntsman alerted to his location. With that in mind, he pulled Isobu off of his back and took a stance. The tribesmen seemed surprised that a single traveler would think to fight all of them, but they seemed more than happy to comply. All of them wore the same grim masks that the Ambu back at the complex did, but it would be a quick matter to find out whether they were of the same caliber. As the first three rushed him, he kept his defenses up. He sidestepped the heavy swing of a mace and used the smaller hook on Isobu to pull it from the owner. With a twist, it was released and smashed into the chest of another of the incoming tribesmen. The third, who wielded a broadsword, thought to hit him in the back while he was occupied. Yagura thought to hit him in the back while he was occupied. Yagura kicked behind himself, hitting the man in the stomach and causing him to double over. In one motion, he had Isobu's larger hook wrap around the man's throat and pulled. The sharpened edge removed the connection between his head and torso. As blood sprayed from his throat, Yagura flared his aura. The crimson liquid stopped mid-air and surrounded him in the form of a red mist that spread out 3 feet in each direction. The entire bout that had taken the matter of 2 seconds. At the sight of such a quick dispatch of their brethren, the other tribesmen seemed a bit more hesitant to fight. Fight him, you cowards! This time it wasn't that same male voice that demanded. Now it was a woman's voice. She spoke in such a commanding tone that Yagura imagined she had to be the leader. She seemed to be dressed in a red robe with a black sash, keeping it tied around her. Onyx hair loosely hanging down to her waist, and a full-faced grim mask over her face. On her tip was a strange weapon. It appeared to be a Nodachi, but the scabbard looked like it had some sort of revolver mechanism, like B's Guandao. Interesting. At her words, the others seemed to fall in line. It wasn't the three that rushed Jagger this time, it was a high enough number that he couldn't actually count them. That said, it may as well have been one that rushed him for all he cared. His feet moved quickly enough that he wasn't hit by the amateur styles of these idiots, while each movement of the Sobu made lethal contact. His bloody mist grew in volume the whole time as well, and he could feel himself getting that much stronger with each addition to it. He didn't murder all of the tribesmen, but at some point they stopped arriving to act as sacrifices for his fog. His mist wasn't even thick, but obscuring their vision isn't why he had used the technique. The leader stepped forward then. Yager wasn't surprised that she didn't reek of anger or hatred like the others. She simply looked up. She simply looked upon him with something along the lines of positive emotions were a bit more difficult for him to sense, but it seemed like curiosity. Who are you, young one? She wondered. He didn't lose his stance or do anything with his mist, but did answer, I am Yagura Karatachi. He kept his eyes on her, but that didn't mean he was defenseless. He was one of the most dangerous whites, despite having only one third the power of Naruto, because he was the best at sensing negative emotions. The woman before him had none, but her followers were exuding enough fear to make him wonder if Grim would show up within seconds. My name is Raven Brownwind. I am the Khan of the Red Horde. You're very powerful, and I think you'd make a wonderful addition to my roster. What'd you say? The Yagura narrowed his eyes at the woman and pointed a sobo at her. I know nothing of you, but I do know that I have to find my siblings. I refuse to allow anything to keep me from that. Not the Grim, not the villagers I passed on my way here, and not your tribe. Raven seemed to perk up as he mentioned the villages. Were you the one to raid those villages to the west and south? Yagura only looked at her. You certainly have a talent for this. I do think I'd like to recruit you even more now. How about I make you a deal then? I'll help you find your siblings if you come along with me, at least for a time. I know the White Curtain and the White Steps Veil better than anyone else. If anyone could help you find them, it would be me. Yagura narrowed his eyes at her. I mean you no harm, and I am not lying to you. The nature of our lifestyle ensures only the strong survive. If I can gain someone as strong as you in exchange for those men and women, then I think it was a fair trade. What would you use me if I did say yes? Yagura wondered. He was curious about this woman, but he didn't lower his defenses. Nothing that you don't already do, if my assumptions is correct. I want you to help us raid villages, kill any Grim that get in our way, kill any resistance to us, whether they are within or without the Horde, and assure the settlements we visit understand they are inferior to us in every way, so they'll hand over supplies immediately. Those that sound good enough? In exchange, I'll help you find your siblings and perhaps give you a little trading. I can see the power behind you, but I think you could be stronger with refinement. Yagra lowered Isobu ever so slightly, but Raven took it as a victory. All right, Raven, I will accompany you, but if anyone gets between my siblings and I, then I won't hesitate to end them. I want you to know that. The masked woman nodded and approached him. She held her hand out, which Yagra shook. Welcome to the Red Horde, young one. I think you'll like it here. Kingdom of Vacuo outskirts, Nexus Oasis. The whites and the human companions had finished refilling some time ago. They had waited for their followers to arrive, and finally it had paid off. It was with recognition that they noted the leader amongst the opposing group. Well, if it is in Jirobu, Tamari commented dryly as she looked upon the large spectre. It seemed that he was the sole spectre, but there were several dozen Draugr, three Remnant, and hundreds of Grin following him. Honestly, I have no qualms about this. Taking the club off her back, Tamari unlatched the end of it and open it to open it fully to reveal it was an oversized fan with a heavy swing. The winds behind it rushed forward and picked up the desert sand. Even as the dust devil hit some of the grim, they exploded into nether. Jirobu only then seemed to notice the group at the oasis and sneered, "Get them! Orochimaru will surely reward us if we can get one of them." As they attempted to rush forward, they were only met with three more whirlwinds carrying sand. The Grim didn't stand much of a chance, and even the experiments felt the cutting edge of the winds, coupled with the grinding of sand against their unprotected flesh. "Are you gonna save any for us, sis?" Kakaro wondered idly. The blonde folded her fan back up and gave him a look. "I'm just saying, maybe we'd like to do something, even if it is an underwhelming force. Maybe we should have waited for them to receive reinforcements after all." As the boy spoke, his aura flared up and he thrust his hands out, fingers straight and pointed at the crowd of Jirobu's forces. Six of the Draugr went rigid before he flexed his fingers and had them start attacking the other Draugr. "Stop it, you idiots!" Jirobu shouted at the Draugr. He knew that they were mindless beasts, but couldn't they do this after he had one of the whites? Damn it all to hell. Jirobu, who had never interacted much with Konkoro, didn't know that this was Konkoro's semblance. Dancing strings. Thanks to it, he was able to take control over things with a weaker aura than him. Given these Draugrs' aura was suppressed by the nether, it didn't matter how strong they were. His refined aura would always outmatch them. With each Draugr that Kankuro lost, he simply took another. As the larger part of the forces were kept busy, Han and Roshi stayed back to follow Beam, to allow B his fun. With Gyuki, his Guandao in hand, he rushed into the remaining enemies. The handle of his weapon looked to have a dust revolver function that began spinning according to his aura until the entire weapon glowed a deep burning red. The first remnant was easily bisected with the heat of the weapon and the immense strength that B brought to bear. The second and third remnant, having lost their grim hives, resorted to dust magic. The first launched a blast of water dust in an attempt to push him back, but B just pushed through the pressure with ease. The second fired off a large bolt of electricity, but that only caused Jirobu to further yell. "Imbecile, don't you know one of his tails is that of the Baya? Electricity doesn't affect him." The revenants didn't have time to regret their mistake, as his Guandao swung once, then thrusted. Jirobu cursed and looked at B. The last thought he had was that he should have brought more forces with him. He should have brought far more forces with him. After that, it was nothing. Not darkness, just nothingness. End of chapter 4.